All right, you guys, good morning. It's November 18th, 2025, and this is our pre-market preparation for today. We're going to talk about what happened yesterday and go through that. So let me just bring up, let me take off some things here. Don't need this. Okay, hang on, guys. There you go. Okay. All right. So this was yesterday's pre-market prep. And one thing that I talked about was we had this scenario where we were downside X plus. So this is ES. We kind of knew we were downside X plus. I always forget to bring up my screen marking tools. So hang on. Let me do this really quick. Bring up my screen marker, which is somewhere, not sure where it's at. All right, it's like hidden somewhere on my screen, so let's just ignore it. Okay, so the idea yesterday was downside X plus, but what I talked about was there are boundaries of distance that we want to factor in. So in a lot of cases, when you have kind of a deep move like this and downside X plus, you get this scenario where instead of you having this nice downside move that then continues for the rest of the day, you get this downside trend. What you end up with is where kind of on the open, you maybe reverse that. It's almost like you're fading and you're kind of fading back up. And so that's what we were looking at as more of a fade type of move on the open, even though we were still kind of in this downside approach in this downside model, right? So this was kind of what we had talked about was either, forming from top down, right? And that would be normal if we were, if price action was working all up and around here in the open, but that wasn't what's happening. We were kind of down here. And so the expectation was a little bit more of this. And I think I even mentioned this, like, come down here, pop back up, and then make this move back up. Right. And so this is more of a bottom up type of move that we were expecting. Let me get a good view here. So downside X plus, and then I think I showed some of my actual numerical data, which helps me to plan out the approximate location of where the opening range of the market is gonna form. All right. So that was yesterday, and what we got was kind of exactly that, right? We kind of got this, actually this downside move to start out with, cleared out all the liquidity, which was awesome, big upside move, and then we ended up with this downside X plus model, which eventually, we went lower, but not till much later in the day, right? It just took a long time to really develop, going back lower after this big bull move up like that. So so we got kind of what we expected, which was downside X plus, bottom up formation. If you were anticipating this and you had levels down here, kind of this was high probability fade opportunity here in the market going back up. But you're also, like, here's the other great thing about this data is you recognize that there's a limit to how far this is going to move up, right? Because once you start approaching this level here, so let me do this here. Once you start approaching, the DR zone of the ODR, right? That then that's a much bigger move, probably all the way up here, right? But you know that the data, the probabilities they're not on your side for that. The side that you're on is a 52, 53% probability. And that's 53%. That's not between two things. That's 53% is the dominant compared to, the 8, different models that we have, right? Or 7 different models that we have. Not even that, right? So that's a really big number, actually. And so your biggest probability is that you're not going all the way up to here. Your biggest probability is that you're making kind of a more short move. And so this isn't one to hold all day. Like this isn't a trade to sit and hold that it's going to work itself up all day, right? And that's kind of the other thing that we can learn from this. All right, so totally accurate, great accuracy yesterday, today. This is what we're looking at in ES. So we're looking at, between ADR and ODR, a downside X plus. We also had a short confirmation, albeit it was late in the session. So really late short confirmation. And we've kind of, we're not outside, we're inside of this IDR range. So let's see what our data says. What does our data tell us about what might happen today? So let's bring this up. Let's reset everything. So ES, downside X plus, short true. It's Tuesday. And then we're kind of open on the inside. Okay. So the open on the inside is significant. I think I've talked about this. It's where the messiness happens most of the time. Kind of when at this 8:30 time period, we haven't done anything. All the overnight session, the whole overnight session, we haven't done anything. We've just sat within a pretty narrow range, and then we're still sitting in that very narrow range. And so the data is reflecting that, right? Historically, we might end up with range expansion or downside, right? Or, maybe one of these others, but that's kind of our dominant model. It's to take that off. Like when we take Tuesday off, it's even less clear, right? It's so mixed right now. So what are we expecting? We're not sure what we're expecting, right? So we've got a model that looks like this. So let's bring up our range expansion model. So we have a model that looks like this. And then we have a model that looks, I think downside was the other one. So it's something like this, which, as I mentioned, downside is like a cousin to range expansion. We just didn't quite make it back up, above. So that's downside, that's range expansion. So what I'm going to be looking for today is I'm going to be looking for, obviously, something to happen at the extreme. Now, it's really interesting because if we've already had, let me do this. We just kind of zoom out here as much as possible, right? We're kind of like in this downward trend. Like there is conceivably an idea that we could have this, a downside leg, right? That keeps going down here. And so there is that kind of possibility. So it would be interesting to see for me, like I'd feel a lot more comfortable if we did something where we formed the extreme first. So if we kind of came up here or even all the way up here for range expansion, remember this is downside, this would be range expansion. And then we started working our way down and then got a bigger move later in the day going down. Like I would love to see something more like this, right? Versus something like this where my data is telling me, hey, there's a possible range expansion. I'd hate to see something like this first because, we're kind of already in this downtrend and the idea of us, coming all the way back up from that, I don't know. I think I'd rather see the other play out because I think there's probably a bigger move than us going against kind of the dominant, most recent higher time frame trend. But, we take what we can get in the market. We try to look at what's happening in the moment and present, and then we kind of go from there. So that's just the idea. So for me today, my plan is I just need to wait to see what happens at the extremes. So if we open the market at 9:30 and we're trading, anywhere in here, I'm just going to wait. Like there's not much for me to do because I need to wait for the messiness to kind of work itself out and for the market to kind of pick its direction of what it wants to do on a bigger basis. So hopefully we do get a good move, and hopefully we get some more clarity there. Let's take a look at NQ. NQ is going to be about the same. So in fact, if I check the data, let's just check this out. Downside X plus, short, true, inside. So if I bring up the data here for NQ, it's about the same, still dominant on range expansion. Downside is higher up there. So we just need to wait and see a little bit of what's going to happen. There's expect a little bit possible messiness on the open, and that's what we got going on. So that is my plan for today. That's my pre-market prep from a contextual narrative perspective. It's what I'm looking at. So do with it as you want. And you guys go have an awesome day and make amazing decisions today in your trading.